to Bittening, साथ में मिलके शुरू करते हैं जिंदगी की दूसरी इनिंग. So today we are going to have an amazing show. Me and Pranav are so amazed. We are blessed to meet Charles Ducey, and I'll call him Charles. And Charles is CEO of DYDX Foundation. And we met Charles today in Bengaluru on his visit, and I'm going to ask him how is he feeling in India and how has been his experience. By the way, he was trying chicken biryani during the lunchtime, and I'm yet to know what was his feeling about his chicken biryani experience, right? And today we are going to discuss so much about the DYDX Foundation, about the DeFi ecosystem, how this ecosystem is growing, the CFI contagion that we say, FTX contagion, what was the impact of that contagion on the DeFi ecosystem, on DYDX Foundation, how they are looking at the overall development that has taken place. But before I move forward, Charles, as I told you, is the CEO of DYDX Foundation. But before that, he was heading the business development side of Consensus, and Charles is also the head of fintech in the Hong Kong government, and he is also the co-author of Block Kong book that he gifted me and Pranav together. And the best part is that it was personally signed by him, and while giving the book, he also gave us $1 billion. Thought of resigning from crypto podcast, because once you get $1 billion, why you want to work? But the moment I went out and to buy a cup of coffee, he said, it can't fetch you a single cup of coffee. So so that's what thank you, Charles, for this. And Charles is also one of the top 50 fintech influencer in Asia in 2018. So welcome, Charles, to India. Before I start my conversation, like always, I'll ask Charles to tell something about himself and when was his first encounter with Bitcoin and what was his experience, what was his first thought, and if you can tell something about his journey.
Thank you so much, Kashif and Pranav, for having me. Super excited to be here. I have so much energy coming to India. Yeah. It's just so many great encounter, entrepreneurs, engineers, developers from the world of crypto. So it's just very energizing and give me a lot of optimism for the space when every time I come and visit India. The chicken biryani, fantastic. Fantastic. Yeah. I think I'll get some more tonight.
all right.
Maybe a few words as you ask about my journey in crypto. I discovered the internet in the early 90s. I was essentially teaching internet in a cyber cafe so I could get access to the internet. Okay. And when I was a student later on, I started to experience with peer-to-peer file sharing. So I was a student, I did not have big of a budget, so I wanted to listen music and movies, and I was doing peer-to-peer file sharing. And
just like Napster.
Yeah. Napster, eDonkey 2000, Nutella.
You build your own?
No, I didn't build. I was just deeply studying and using the services. And I started to realize how this kind of organic and electronic organism could be built, and how the internet could be different from the early websites I was building with a server, and where there was some kind of new type of architecture for the content on the internet, which was totally distributed servers. So I was always interested by the technology. I was active into the peer-to-peer file sharing scene. And then one day I discovered this white paper talking about peer-to-peer money. And I thought, I know peer-to-peer, I know money, let's have a look. I look at this, and to be honest with you, I was a little bit skeptical at the beginning. And probably passed on it. And a few weeks later, I came back, I read of this again, and it was very interesting because I feel I got the concept of peer-to-peer very quickly, because I was exposed with peer-to-peer file sharing, so peer-to-peer money was kind of easy to understand, but it made me starting a long journey to kind of re-educate myself about economy, about money. I was using money every day like everyone, but I was not really understanding deeply what it means. And essentially this technology of Bitcoin kind of triggers me to refresh me like the basics of economics. And then I took a break a little bit on Bitcoin. I was just busy with life. I was an entrepreneur at the time. And I came again in the ecosystem when Ethereum started. And when these smart contract capabilities...
You started in 2011, right?
2011, yeah.
Then you came back in 2015?
15, 16, Ethereum comes in, smart contracts. Smart contracts means you can have business logic on the top of a blockchain. And then there was like the number of use cases went exponential, right? So the technology was much more interesting, and more importantly, the community was getting much bigger and much more diverse.
Yeah.
So in the Ethereum meetups I was attending at the time in Hong Kong, you will meet like people from finance, you will meet engineers, you will meet all kind of people. Very, very energizing kind of community. And from there, times pass by. I spent some time with Consensus, the company behind MetaMask and Infura. And now I am with DYDX at the foundation with a team of amazing people distributed all over the world, and essentially enabling the community of DYDX and building some very ambitious DeFi projects.
Right. Definitely. And if you hear Anderson Howard's, he had to create JavaScript so that he could initially start using internet, and that was like how things rolled up and made things. Similarly, Ethereum was like, atomic nuclear technology. People could use it badly, or they could be, used in a correct way. Consensus did the right thing of creating tooling around it. I remember in my early days of development, there was a tool called as Truffle.
Yes.
That came from Consensus, and that actually taught me how Ethereum can be used. Otherwise, it was all like, gypsy knowledge which nobody could really get through. It was great. It was peer-to-peer, but what do you do about it? You are a engineer who has been working in Web2. You develop projects. How do you use this new Solidity programming language? That's where Remix came in, Truffle came in, MetaMask came in, and there were a plethora of tools that actually made Ethereum usable. So I think Consensus needs to be definitely has all the credits for doing that.
Absolutely.
So how Consensus really shaped, as per you, Ethereum, and what did you do at Consensus specifically? That
So Consensus was created by Joe Labine. I think it was very experimental. He was very aware that the space was early, so there was a lot of evangelism, there was a lot of education, and there was a lot of providing infrastructure with Infura. So the way for a dApps developer to be able to launch their apps without having to run their node. That was a very basic value proposition, but it allowed people to focus on their apps and not taking as much care of the underlying chains via RPCs. So building tools, Truffle, Infura, MetaMask are really the core. It was also very entrepreneurial. There was this incubation system. There was a consensus mesh with companies which were kind of spin-off out of Consensus. So it was very, very free, very experimental, very focused, very passionate. So that's really created the right environment to bring also very, very talented people from all over the place. And that's really what created the impact and contributed to the kind of the flying wheel effect. Like the more tooling, the more applications, the more mind share there was, the more people were involved. And I think this has helped the ecosystem of Ethereum to grow very, very quickly and very meaningfully. So we definitely owe some gratitude to Joe and the team for that.
yes.
Charles, as you said that, on a lighter note, that you first encountered Bitcoin in 2011, and then you lost all the Bitcoins in a boating accident.
No, what happened is that I bought some Bitcoin in 2011.
Oh.
And then I was not exactly sure what I was buying. I was just excited and thinking, well, there is something there, and maybe if I own a little bit, I will pay
How
even
did
more
you buy
attention.
it in 2011?
I bought on the internet. Mongox was there, but I was not confident with Mongox for some reason, which was a good way. And then eventually I went busy with life, and I was seeing these things going up and down. I was like, oh my God, this might not be for me. Let's focus on what I have to do now. And eventually I just sold it all. So I made some early mistakes.
That's okay.
And
I think we all have done that while starting a journey. I want to ask you one question, Charles. Generally, we see that Ethereum had a foundation, right? A role of a foundation has to be people-centric. It cannot be, a foundation cannot be profit-centric.
Absolutely.
Right? And Ethereum somewhere showed us that, how a foundation should actually work. Now we are seeing that a lot of L1s and a lot of projects are coming with a foundation as a basis just to avoid, maybe taxation or regulation, without understanding that the real goal of a foundation is incomplete without people welfare. So I want to understand from DYDX is the foundation of DYDX Foundation has people in their mission, the ultimate goal is that, somewhere they want to improve the people's life with the whatever DYDX Foundation is working towards?
That's a great question. So the foundation was created at DYDX in 2021. So it's a fairly young foundation. It's a foundation which is not overfunded. We are not big holders of DYDX. DYDX is mostly owned by the community. So we are not super lords or anything like this. We are really humble, active member of the community, but humbled by design also. As you mentioned, people are really the core, the community is the core. It's part of the mission, public mission of the foundation is really to enable the ecosystem growth for developers and for users and for the decentralized governance. So this is really what we do, three things. Enabling the users, enabling the developers, and enabling the decentralized governance. The goal is to really help the community and being an active part of the community, so that all these different aspects of enabling developers to understand better the stack and build and leverage the composability opportunity of building with DYDX on the top of DYDX, and also enabling the decentralized governance. So we have 2 DAOs today within the ecosystem of DYDX, and these DAOs essentially are platform for the community to discuss and decide how the protocol should be evolving. Should it be for technical kind of trajectories? Should it be for strategic trajectories? Should it be for grants distribution? So there is really this community aspect. So we are 20 plus people at the DYDX Foundation, spread all over the world, really focusing on community enablement, decentralized governance, and essentially user conversations.
Initially, DYDX was a project, right?
Yes.
And eventually it spin up into one profitable organization and a foundation. So foundation does all the core dev, grants and stuff like that. And then there is this company. So what's this first core dev, which is DYDX company, labs maybe, and what does it do which is different, totally different from the foundation? So what's the distinction?
Sure. So the history of DYDX started in 2017. It was built on Ethereum. At the time, that was the only blockchain available. Very quickly, the platform got a lot of traction, and DYDX was one of these groundbreaking and very, very visionary team saying, we will keep facing trades-off on layer 1, and there is this layer 2 stack which is coming up. Let's quickly go there, and let's keep a focus on the product. Let's keep a focus on the user experience. Let's keep a focus on the application layer, and be a little bit agnostic of the underlying technology. So same way, if you have a better software available for your website, you should use the better software. And developers don't use HTML anymore for websites. They still have the same website, but they've been upgrading their website with maybe now React or some other languages to build their platforms, right? So it's exactly the same kind of product-driven first principle philosophy of upgrading from one stack to another. Now that DYDX has kind of settled on Starkware, the building of version 4 of DYDX has started this time on Cosmos SDK. What we do at the foundation, we don't produce code. The code is built today by DYDX, the core firm, and then this code will be open source for the version 4. So it will be essentially in the end of the community to keep evolving. And then the community will be able to decide what should be prioritized, what should be funded, and what would be the direction of the protocol in general.
So you mentioned that DYDX had a whole journey of moving initially from Ethereum to Starkware and now to Cosmos. So first of all, what were the reasons of moving from what made you guys drive towards from Starkware to this Cosmos based own chain? And secondly, since you guys are the master of DeFi, you guys have made the best derivative protocol for perpetual trading and stuff like that. How do you make sure that the chain that now you are developing, which might not be as big a core competency as being a DeFi protocol, how do you make sure it is decentralized? How do you make sure it is always running? And how do you make sure that those funds are always secure of the people who would be trusting you guys in V4? Because it's Starkware, that's not the case. It's like Ethereum Starkware which is mentioning that. So what's the narrative, and how do you make sure the security guarantees are still there for all the users?
The reason the different versions of DYDX evolve on different type of blockchains is essentially an obsession with user experience and product. And that's very interesting. Sometimes the world of blockchain is a little bit tribal, right? So people will be maximalist in some technologies or others, and they will stay within them, and they will feel they need to be dedicated to this and not evolving. At DYDX, it's more really a strong focus on the application, on the users, and making sure that we can grow with the product. So we have the chance, as you mentioned, to be very successful today, but it's also because it was a philosophy of saying, okay, how can we make sure we keep upgrading with the success of the app? Going to Cosmos allows us to essentially being much more in control of the full stack. So technically, we are an application becoming a protocol. So as an application, we used to be sitting on someone else's blockchain. So when you sit on Ethereum or when you sit on Starkware, you sit on general purpose blockchains. These blockchains are essentially designed to host multiple use cases. So on Ethereum, you can do NFTs, you can do smart contracts, you can do DeFi, you can do multiple things. But when you are very focused, as we are, on one use case, which is crypto derivatives in a DeFi format, you essentially have to do a lot of trade-off because you sit on someone else's product, which is designed to host many others.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you will have some needs, and sometimes you will need to wait for the underlying blockchain to upgrade or to deliver on new features so that you can essentially enable one additional options to your product. So moving to Cosmos and building our own chain allows us to be much more in control of the full stack. The other reason of why we are moving to Cosmos also is to keep progressing on the roadmap of decentralization. Even though DYDX today is a decentralized platform, there is still some components, and we are very transparent about it, which cannot be hosted by a blockchain. So for example, in the version 3 of DYDX, the order book is still sitting off-chain. It's sitting into one server because there is no blockchain capable to essentially accommodate the volume and the throughput of all the users and all the volume happening every day on DYDX. So on the version 4, we wanted also to fix for us this milestone and making sure that as many components of the product itself get really and truly decentralized. So on version 4 of DYDX, the order book, which used to be off-chain, will be technically decentralized. So it will not be on-chain. An on-chain order book is still very complicated because the block time creates some latency. How fast is your block? Your block is always too slow when you think of high-frequency trading and large volumes trading. So technically, the order book will be sitting in the memories of the validators of the DYDX chain, which is a very innovative way to essentially making sure that there is no central component anymore, but it's still decentralized without being technically, from an engineering perspective, on the blockchain itself. So it's really helping this roadmap of decentralization and making sure that we can increase the throughput, we can increase the experience, and we can essentially increase the design to make it more trustable, to make it more aligned with the DeFi ethos we keep striving for.
Mm-hmm. What would you say to the people who say like Ethereum is decentralized, and with that DYDX being deployed to Ethereum made it trustless and secure and decentralized, while when moves to Cosmos, there is not as much decentralization, and you don't know how many validators will be securing that particular chain.
There is a spectrum of things when you look at decentralization. And decentralization is very important because when you decentralize, essentially you work on trust. Yeah. And one very important thing you're aware, and we've seen that in our industry, is even though we are working on decentralized technology, even though we are working on trustless technology, we are still in the trust business. People want to anchor their trust. People anchor their trust on Bitcoin because Bitcoin is trustless. So you want to decentralize because you want to essentially create trust. Ethereum is decentralized enough. There is today, after the merge, hundreds of thousands of validators, and they are fairly well distributed. Layer 2s sometimes will have a degree of decentralization, which might be different. You have a need of a sequencer, for example, which is usually a centralized entity. On the DYDX blockchain, we have today a very strong appetite and demand from validators to be part of the validator set of the DYDX chain. So we are very confident we're going to be able to reach a very, very meaningful number of validators to ensure that the chain is decentralized enough. It will be permissionless, it will be totally transparent. So if at some point we find out we need to improve the decentralization of the chain, the community will be able essentially to have this conversation and decide how things should be evolving to make sure we maintain and improve the decentralization of the chain. What you see technically on on Cosmos-based chain, usually, roughly speaking, you will find about 100 validators on Cosmos chain. The reason being you cannot increase the number of validators too much, otherwise you slow down the consensus, so to say the confirmation. So for every validators to be agree on the validity of a block, if you have too many validators, it might create a little bit more.
Also, there is this
more time.
tendermint component that exists.
Absolutely.
So yeah, you think 100 is a good number to start with for DeFi?
This is what we've seen for some other protocol. So all of this will be evolving with the launch of V4. It will be transparent for everyone, as everything is in DeFi. And if there is something to address or to pay attention, the community will be there, the decentralized governance is there to essentially keep progressing on that. But that's a good question. Trust is really what we eventually aim for, beyond the technology, beyond the engineering, design and implementations. What we want to achieve is this trust level.
Charles, what has been the impact of FTX contagion and the what that we have seen it in the past, the CeFi ecosystem collapsing? Has there been an increase in the interest? Obviously, there are numbers that are suggesting that certainly people are moving toward DeFi and decentralized exchanges are growing. But what has been your experience? I mean, has there been an exponential growth in DYDX ecosystem? Has there been interest in more queries coming to you, or what has been your experience after that?
A few days after FTX collapse, DYDX experienced like 3x growth, very organically.
Yeah.
After things have been stabilizing a little bit, but definitely people learned their lesson. And then I think the centralized type of crypto exchanges started to, for example, publish their
Proof of reserve. Yeah.
proof of reserve.
Yeah.
And what is funny is proof of reserve is by design at DYDX from day one. By design from DYDX, you can see the reserve. You can see the funds of the customers. They are not in our hands. They are basically part of the DeFi architecture and the smart contracts.
It
right?
was funny, people like, oh, give us your proof of reserve. Binance was and DYDX was okay. These are the contracts. Post it.
It's updated every minute. It's totally transparent. Then the people started to understand more about this, and I think some people burned their fingers. Some people got scared. The regulator starting to look at things also. So I think it's just a wake-up call for our responsibilities as a crypto industry, making sure we educate well enough about what are the benefits of DeFi, making sure we educate also our regulators and stay engaged with them. Not only claiming DeFi is better, but also demonstrating that many of the things regulators want to achieve, such as segregations of the funds from the users, from the operators. For example, also making sure the market is transparent. All of these things can be achieved with DeFi when it's properly designed, but we have to demonstrate it also and helping with the regulators to understand and properly, I would say, frame the industry. But the sentiment is extremely good. It brings a new set of participants. We've seen a lot of people which are not definitely migrating from one day to another, but starting to essentially grow their exposure to DeFi in general and to the DYDX protocol by starting to essentially split a little bit their trading venues.
I like you to answer me in a very honest manner that you came to India and while we were having an informal discussion, you said that UPI is fascinating. I mean, you were using
it blew my mind, honestly.
So it's a compliment for India basically because the world is studying the success of UPI. I want to ask you this question, I'll relate it to the decentralized exchanges. Do you think that there will be a time when people are comfortable using decentralized exchanges? There will be a time when people will not even give a second thought to use decentralized exchanges, and it will be like so easy for them that they don't know even that they're using a decentralized exchange. You think that that is the real mission and a goal where you believe that that's the real ultimate goal that every foundation should strive for, that to make the product so easy for people that without even they realizing that they're using a decentralized exchange?
This is definitely the road of travel. We need to be patient. It's not going to happen next year. It's not going to happen in 2 years. It's a journey which will take maybe 5 years more, maybe 10 years more. There may be a moment of truth with CBDCs or some new innovations coming up. We cannot expect the Web3 to grow 10x faster than Web 1. I think we will find the same kind of growth pattern. They are extremely fast growth environment, but there is usually a bunch of early adopters, and later there is like mass market adopters. You just come into a curve, right? So one of another responsibility of us is essentially as an industry to make sure that we improve the user experience and we improve the infrastructure. So we don't have to essentially bother users with private keys and wallets and all these things. And if you think about it, when we send each other a WhatsApp message, it's encrypted, right? So encryption means there is a private key and a public key. So WhatsApp and many other applications and your internet browser is actually encrypting your web browsing. So it's happening. There is ways to implement all these encryptions basics and fundamentals in a much easier way. So it's coming. You see products like Uniswap, for example, which are having a great adoption. You see platforms like OpenSea, which are having also great user experience and trying to make a little bit abstraction. So I think it's a journey and it's one of our responsibility. Education is one answer, but it's not only education. It's also
UX.
improving the UX, improving the experience. And I add one more thing, if that's okay. We need to think as an industry, and you can help here.
Yeah.
How can we evolve the jargon we use in the crypto industry?
Yeah.
Think about it. When you use a crypto application, we are being asked to connect with our wallet. No one asks you to see your wallet, usually. Your wallet is something very private. So imagine for a new user, why don't we ask them to connect with their account? Connect with my account is okay, I do this every day. Connect with my wallet as a new user, this is like, you need my wallet for me to connect, why don't you ask me something else? So connect with your account is something we should probably improve. It's a jargon thing, choosing the right words. Think about the jargon around like, this is a trustless platform. If you ask your friends, if you ask your cousin, trustless platform. So this is something we cannot trust. So there is many words we use in our industry yet which are still maybe a little bit too nerdy, and we can improve them to essentially keep accelerating this mass adoption. But to come back to your questions, maybe we hope to see the new wave of users coming via NFTs and DeFi, but maybe they will come from another door. And if you think of what the governments are building, 95% of central banks today are building CBDCs based on blockchain technologies. And maybe the way people will start to experience blockchain, some of us have experience with like the early days of the technology and DeFi and all these things. Maybe some others, their first experience in Web3 will be a government CBDC. So there is multiple ways people will start their journey. Some people might be starting to use internet for social media. Some others are starting to use internet for like supply chain management at the office. I think it will be coming from many different horizons, and growing our side of the door or opening our door wider is important. But making sure that there is also other doors for as many people to come in, which are widely open, is also important.
And I think we are taking the right steps to make that happen. For example, with Ethereum, we have a lot of talk about the account abstraction and the ERC related to making that UX improvement. For example, you would not have to connect with your wallet and start doing things, get your seed phrase to be stored. It would rather be a Google account plus a few things. Absolutely. So that you can start in and then have better ways to also recover the wallet via social stuff, which is great. And this is this is definitely something, the question I wanted to ask, given this is happening in the Ethereum world, is maybe you cannot spill out all the details, but would be that, can we expect DYDX to also have a account abstraction based interface? Because DYDX is one of the most product focused companies, right? And they also don't want their users to connect to wallet and do 100 kind of things without recovery. If things are lost, then they are lost. So are you guys or DYDX with the V4 also thinking of account abstraction, smart contract wallets, smart accounts, account recovery, and stuff like that?
We have to wait for V4 to launch to really get all this information publicly available. I guess my thoughts from now is really we will build, and this will be built with Cosmos and the Cosmos ecosystem. So you've got already existing a very, very mature wallet ecosystem. You think of Cosmos Station, you think of Kepler, you think of Leap, you think of many different ways to connect. We hear also from the market that maybe MetaMask is soon launching a Cosmos compatible technology within MetaMask, so that will mean like more people joining this type of ecosystem. So we will keep striving in this direction. At the moment, there is not so much things available. So as soon as we know more, we'll make sure we'll share.
Yeah. Of course, it's like, Ethereum tooling is great, and Cosmos tooling is coming there as DYDX comes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very interesting times.
Charles, while I was going through this book, the book basically covers the 21 entrepreneurs and financiers leading blockchain in Hong Kong, right? And on page number 88, I found a picture of Sam Bankman-Fried, and Charles has interviewed him personally in Hong Kong, and I want to ask him this question because there are very few people who have actually interviewed him and personally and met him. So Charles, what was your experience first time when you met him? Is he a vegetarian or a non-vegetarian? Did he order coffee or a tea or how was he? I mean, and what was like? I mean, whatever has happened today, when you go back in your memories and when you recall when you met him. You felt at that point of time that something like this could happen in the future? Just tell me your experience about that meeting.
Maybe to put some context on how the interview went and coming back to the book. So each of the interview in the book is happening around breakfast. So what I was asking all my guests is pick a place where you really like to go with your friends, and we will go to this place and we will have a breakfast and we will have the interview in a casual way, and we will speak about blockchain and we will speak about the food, and this will be casual. SBF told me, no, I'll be at the office. I don't go breakfast outside. But every other guest will tell me, okay, let's go this one, or I will show you some really good place. And I was all over the city. But SBF said, no, you come to my office. So I said, okay. For SBF, I will do a breakfast delivery.
SBF, so breaking news. SBF never had a breakfast in his life.
He had a breakfast. So
Straight away he had a brunch.
So because he told me come to my office, I had to bring the breakfast myself. So I went to a French boulangerie and I bring croissant.
Wow.
And then because that's true. I bring croissant to him, and I bought also like 20 croissants for the team because I knew I was coming to the office. So I was thinking, why not share a croissant and share croissant with the team over there? And then because I knew he was an obsessed engineer and very probably a little bit an engineering type of guy.
Yeah.
I bought
nerdy
exactly.
with his hairs.
You can see it on the haircut, absolutely. I brought also a bottle of Soylent. Do you know Soylent?
No.
So Soylent is a vegetarian kind of protein drink, which has been designed to give you everything you need in terms of minerals and proteins and everything in just one bottle.
Where is that bottle?
No, that's not.
Where is the bottle?
So have a look at Soylent. It's kind of food for the 21st century. A little bit nerdy, but I thought, okay, croissant and Soylent. So I went to the office, 8 o'clock, Monday morning. He was there. The employees were not even there yet. What I was very surprised to, I was not surprised, but I was expecting and I wanted to dig in during my interview is I found SBF being one of the few founders of exchanges, being a trader as a first job.
Trader.
So before creating FTX, SBF was actually a trader himself.
Yeah.
And I found in the FTX design, the pace of development, the design of the product available. At the time he was launching very early on, like token representing leverage. He was launching like shitcoin index, dragon index. He was having a lot of different innovation. Everyone else was very classic, the classic trading pairs, but he was very innovative in terms of product.
Okay.
And I find it very interesting, and I found it was possible because he was himself a trader. So it was a trader building an exchange.
Trader building an exchange.
Yeah.
And it was definitely something I could felt. Very fast thinker, very articulate. You could not believe at the time when I met him, I would not think that the drama, which happened a few years later, will unfold. So at the time, he was not very well known. He was when I did the interview with him, it was 2019. So it was very early days.
Yeah. I think he met him in a very early stages.
Yeah.
FTX was actually born in Hong Kong. So many people don't know, but in Hong Kong, the FTX was started in Hong Kong. Crypto.com was started in Hong Kong. BitMEX was started in Hong Kong. BitMEX created the perpetuals. Perpetuals were created by BitMEX, and BitMEX was in Hong Kong. OKX is a listed company in Hong Kong. Huobi is a listed company in Hong Kong. So there is this kind of low profile but very influential ecosystem which I wanted to cover. And when I saw SBF being part of this ecosystem, I was thinking I should definitely kind of cover so I can give the fullest picture of the ecosystem.
Yeah, and like it's like Hong Kong made the Web3 ecosystem what it is. Then it was closed by China, and now it's gaining trust again.
Yeah.
So there is a lot that can come up from the Hong Kong ecosystem in general. But you are in India right now, right? You already told that biryani is awesome, right? And we'll take you to that word on that. But
UPI is amazing.
UPI.
UPI was mind-blowing. We've seen it in the news, like, oh, launch of UPI. But honestly, overseas, people have moved on because they haven't seen it.
Yeah.
But for me, what was the most impressive is the adoption. So you might have always really good technologies which will get some success or no success. But UPI is just everywhere, and people are happy, and no one is speaking about it.
Yeah.
It just works. It helps a lot of people, and for me, it's just like the product market fit is just evident.
Yeah.
And what I like also with UPI is I think it's really inclusive.
Yeah.
I feel UPI is inclusive. I feel you're a small fintech, you can benefit from the same infrastructure as a bank.
Yeah.
You can benefit from the same infrastructure as someone else.
Yeah.
There is many things built in some other countries which will be in favor of the existing stakeholders and not so much inclusive. So inclusivity is something also which stands out to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is so much like but based on UPI QR transactions, bank can monitor that this vendor has this much transaction or throughput, and that's why we can give him this kind of loan. So
Yeah.
so great things coming out of UPI. But in India, like my question coming out for that was that DYDX Foundation wants to grow education around DeFi and stuff like that, and you guys want to for sure focus. One of your major focuses is on India. So the question is, why India? Why would the DYDX Foundation wants to grow the education of DeFi in India first specifically? And given that you guys already started banking on it for like 6 months, what are some early trends that you are seeing in India which are different from rest of it, and how does it come into the whole picture?
In a way, we are pulled in India.
Oh.
We have users, we have engagements, we have community, we have questions, a lot of activity. So we are pulled in to try to support and help and essentially surface all this good energy. So that's really the truth. India is important because there is 600 million internet users in India. I think you probably forget it or you take it as a given because you live here. It's just the number is just mind-blowing again.
Yeah.
Let's not forget this.
Yeah, absolutely.
This number should be repeated every day so the people really capture that. It's just so the same way the internet is having success. In my opinion, the history is written. Web3 will have the same level of success in India.
Yeah.
So it's important to be here to respond to the interests from the community and the users here towards DYDX and also get some learnings. Something else which is important for me also is the engineers and some of the entrepreneurs here in India, they get a lot of exposure to the outside world. So believe me or not, but I would learn quite a bit from Indian entrepreneurs based in India because they interact with projects overseas. They are part of global companies. They are also in DeFi in some other space. So even though maybe the market is only so big in India here, the exposure and the mind share is really high quality. So there is many different components, but obviously high potential, pool from the community, a great pool of talent for builders, and ambitious project like us wants to have builders in our ecosystem, so we need to connect, we need to come humble, we need to educate, we need to identify what can be done and how can we support the early initiatives.
Yeah, so you mentioned that about the engineering effort. So I have this interesting statistics that the number of computer engineers that graduate from India every year, just the number of computer engineers that graduate from India is same as the population of Israel, right? And these kind of engineers, the computer engineers, are looking at Web3 with a lot of optimism, thinking that this is the time, this is where I shine, right? Maybe the India was a little late in the internet moment. They were more service based than the product based. But now we can back up with the early successes of Polygon and push and protocols like this. And DYDX showing interest in India makes these engineers even more interested and want to do things. So the question is, what these upcoming engineers can do at the DYDX Foundation that can make them interested or be around.
Let me try to cover your questions in a more broader terms and thinking, how can young talents think of their career in Web3?
Yeah.
Should you be an engineer? Should you be an executive? Should you be a marketing talent or a media talent or anything like this? In the ecosystem of DYDX, there is a grant program, there is things being built. You can integrate with DYDX if you're already running, for example, an aggregator or something like this. There is many things you can do, either by yourself, it's permissionless, or via some grant support. If we just kind of look at this question more as a, like, how can I build my career in Web3? And I think this is a very important question, because I'm sure many people will feel and share what we discussed today. Like, yes, there is a potential in Web3, but like, where do I start? What is in there for me if I'm not an engineer myself? What I will say is, even though the engineers are the first kind of pool talent, Web3 and crypto in general, they need good accountants, which understand the ledger which are distributed. They need good marketers. They need good executives. They need good project managers. So don't be shy. Start your education on Web3 so you understand the technology, the basics, the same way you should be understanding internet to be performant into an e-commerce startup. Try to understand a little bit of the technology. You don't need to be a coder. Just pay attention, spend more time on your video, deep dive into the library and all this quality content you have, and come as you are. Come as you are. First, give some services, contribute to conversations. It will help you to keep training yourself, and it's going to call for opportunity. Web3 is kind of a Uber for talent, is a stepstone for many careers. So the same way some of maybe your uncle or your cousin, which are in their 50s now, got a kick because of the internet and it helped their career and helped them grow, there is, for me, the same opportunity with Web3. A little bit of understanding of the technology, contribute to all these communities, leverage the grant system, the forums, participate in DAOs. And one way you can start at DYDX is joining free of charge the DYDX forum, dydx.forum, and you will see conversations which you will feel comfortable. If you're an engineer, it's technical. Some other conversations are more about the accounting, the token economics, or the way we can go to market for the protocol itself. But you will find a space. But don't be shy and don't let the technology kind of holding you. There is a need for so many different talents. I'm not an engineer myself, and I managed to essentially start my career and grow my career in Web3 without coding anything. Just because there was a need for business development, there was a need for marketing, there was a need for executives in general.
Content creation.
Absolutely.
So even I'm not an engineer, but I have an engineer friend, and we are doing a Web3 Ki Duniya show together. So it was great having a conversation with Charles, and Charles, the closing remarks were amazing. Many a times, we feel that this industry is only about making money. This industry is only about finding the meme coins. This industry is only about finding the frog coins and all those different kind of coins. That's fine, that's fair, but that's part of it. But the ultimate mission of DYDX Foundation is to create that environment, create that ecosystem where people see many opportunities beyond the regular ones that you are seeing. And DYDX is building that platform for everyone, for people who are there in the ecosystem and who are about to enter the ecosystem going forward in the future. Best of wishes from me and Pranav especially, for your mission. And I'll also like to take this opportunity because I owe $1,000 to Pranav, and today on the show I am giving him back the $1,000, and you can keep the change. So these are like I'm giving him back the $1 billion US dollar from the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. So I had taken a loan from him, and you can please keep the change.
This actually is significance of what crypto is and what Bitcoin is trying to do. So stay tuned. A lot has still to come.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for this. Thank you, Charles.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.